Welcome to the deep dive. When we think about financial success, so often the advice is, well, it's pretty standard, right?
Yeah, get a good education, land that secure job.
Exactly, climb the ladder. It's what we hear all the time.
hmm
But is that really the only way? Or is there another way to think about money altogether?
That's really the big question we're tackling today. We're digging into Robert Kiyosaki's huge book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
A classic.
Absolutely. And what's cool is we're looking at it through this specific lens of a recent review. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a Desi perspective on wealth.
Oh, interesting. So kind of seeing how it applies maybe beyond the usual context.
Precisely. The review really highlights how Kiyosaki's ideas, well, maybe written a while ago, are just, well, they're timeless and universal. They hit home way beyond just, a Western audience.
Okay, I like that angle. So the core of the book, for anyone who hasn't read it, is the story of two dads, right?
Yeah, two very different father figures in his life.
There's his poor dad, that's his actual father, highly educated, had a good government job.
Secure, stable.
But always seemed to be struggling with money.
Right, constantly.
And then you've got the rich dad. Now, this wasn't his biological dad.
No, his friend's father. And this guy, he didn't have much formal schooling.
Okay.
But he had this incredible, financial intelligence.
Yeah.
Real street smarts about money. And he became Robert's mentor.
So that contrast is the whole setup. He uses these two figures to challenge that traditional narrative education plus job equals success.
Exactly. It's not really a knock on education itself, I don't think.
More about what's missing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's about highlighting the gap. What traditional schooling doesn't teach you about managing money, about building wealth, it forces you to kind of look at your own assumptions.
So if you had to pick one thing, the absolute biggest takeaway from the book, what would it be? The thing that really turns things upside down.
Oh, hands down, it's his concept of assets versus liabilities.
Yep.
It sounds simple, maybe even obvious at first glance. But the way he defines it is, well, it's revolutionary for a lot of people.
How so?
He puts it bluntly. Rich people acquire assets. The poor and middle class acquire liabilities that they think are assets.
Okay, unpack that. What's an asset? What's a liability in his view?
It's all about cash flow. Forget the complex accounting stuff for a minute. An asset, for Kiyosaki, is anything that puts money into your pocket, period.
Puts money in. Got it.
And a liability. That takes money out of your pocket. Simple as that.
Right. So, okay, let's take an example from the review, like a car payment, an EMI,
Yeah.
or splurging on, say, the latest iPhone 15 Pro Max. If those things aren't actively making you money.
Then they're liabilities. They're draining cash from you every month or in a lump sum.
Ouch. Okay, yeah, my car definitely fits that bill then. It costs me money every month.
And you're not alone there.
Yeah.
That's the point, right? It forces this mental shift. You start looking at purchases differently. Not just, do I want this, but what will this do to my cash flow?
So it introduces this filter, like a question you ask yourself before buying something.
Exactly. Will this make me money or will it cost me money? That question changes things.
It really does. And that ties back to the education point, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Kiyosaki's big critique is that schools teach you how to get good grades, how to get a job.
Right. How to work for someone else.
But they completely skip the fundamentals of money management or investing. There's this huge gap.
A massive gap. And his point is, it doesn't even matter how much you earn. Your salary could be huge.
But if you don't know how to manage it?
Exactly. If you don't understand assets, liabilities, cash flow, you'll likely always struggle. It's less about the paycheck size, more about financial IQ.
So once you grasp that asset-liability difference, the next logical step is changing your whole relationship with money.
That's the core idea, moving beyond just working for money.
Which is what most of us do, right? Trade time for wages?
Yeah. It's a traditional path. He says you need to shift to making money work for you.
How do you do that? What does that look like?
It means building systems. Things like investments or businesses that generate income without you having to actively trade your time for it every single day.
Passive income.
That's the goal, as the review puts it. Creating streams of income that flow to you ideally while you sleep or while you're doing other things. That's the path to real financial freedom in his view.
Okay, so building assets, generating passive income sounds great, but what holds people back? It can feel daunting.
Oh, hugely. And Kiyosaki dives right into the psychology of it. He talks a lot about emotions.
Like what?
Primarily fear and greed. He argues these two emotions drive so many financial decisions, often badly.
Fear, like fear of losing your job. Or fear of taking risks.
Exactly. Fear keeps people stuck in jobs they might hate just because it feels safe. It prevents them from exploring investments or starting a business because, well, what if it fails?
That makes sense. The fear of the unknown.
Right. And his message isn't to be reckless, but it is about understanding that calculated risks are essential for growth. You can't just play it safe forever if you want to break out of the rat race, as he calls it.
You have to face those fears.
Acknowledge them, understand them, but not let them dictate everything.
It sounds like the reviewer really connected with these ideas on a personal level.
Oh, definitely. They mentioned specific aha moments, like that asset liability concept. They said it literally changed my thinking.
Wow.
Yeah, realizing that wealth isn't just about earning, it's maybe even more about keeping and growing what you have.
That's a powerful shift. Earning versus keeping and growing.
It is, and it shows why the book hits home for so many people across different backgrounds.
So even though the book is, what, over 20 years old now? And has American examples?
Right, 'cause some specifics might feel dated or U.S.-centric.
The core principles still land, especially as the review notes. In cultures where maybe financial literacy isn't as commonly discussed or taught.
Absolutely. The review calls the lessons time-proof and universally applicable. It sees particular value for audiences who haven't had much exposure to these ideas before.
Now, no book is perfect. The review did mention some minor criticisms, right? Like, it can be repetitive.
Yeah, it acknowledges that Kiyosaki hammers his main points home, maybe sometimes a bit too much for some readers. It can feel a little repetitive in sections.
Are there other common critiques, maybe more significant ones people raise about the book?
Well, yeah, some critics say it's more motivational than practical, like
Yeah.
it tells you what to do, buy assets, start businesses, but it's maybe light on the specific how-to steps.
Okay, like it's aspirational, but not always a detailed roadmap.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And some find his advice a bit unconventional or perhaps oversimplified at times.
Mm.
But
The reviewer felt the core message outweighs that.
that's the gist. The reviewer, and honestly millions of readers, feel the power of that fundamental mindset shift is so profound that it overshadows those criticisms. The goal isn't necessarily a detailed instruction manual.
It's about changing your thinking first.
Exactly. It's about planting that seed for a different way of looking at money.
So, wrapping up this deep dive then, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's less about specific tips and tricks.
And much more about fundamentally changing your mindset, your soch, as the Desi Perspective Review nicely puts it.
Your thinking, your perspective.
Yeah. It's about cultivating that rich mindset, seeing opportunities, understanding how money actually works beyond just earning a salary.
It's an invitation to just see things differently.
It really is. And the final verdict from our source review,
What did they give it?
a strong recommendation, a 100% yes, must read, rating it 4.5 out of 5.
Pretty high praise.
Yeah, and they added, it's the kind of book you read once, and then you immediately want to read it again, just to let those ideas sink in deeper.
Makes sense. It all comes back to that core mantra, doesn't it?
Which one?
Don't work for money.
Ah, yes. Let money work for you. That sums it up beautifully.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening.
Let's leave them with something to chew on.
Okay. Think about one financial decision you're facing right now. Or maybe an aspiration you have.
Could be big or small. Buying something, saving for something, investing.
Yeah. Now, try looking at it through this new lens we've been talking about, the Kiyosaki lens.
Ask yourself, is this primarily acquiring an asset? Something that could potentially put money in my pocket down the line?
Or is it primarily a liability, something that will mostly take money out?
And then think.
Yeah.
What's maybe one small step, just one thing you could do this week to lean more towards acquiring an asset, to start making your money work a little bit harder for you?
Just one small step, something to think about.